Hey, scrappy people, Traci Reed here today, coming at you with 4 fun foundation pages for my 2024 October daily using the Cider Season collection. And today we are going to start in silhouette because I'm going to be creating cut files from a digital embellishment from the Cider Season digital kit. And I'm just going to drag and drop this tall pumpkin into the Silhouette Studio, and what I'm going to be doing is creating 3 different cut files for these pumpkins. One is going to be the actual inside little fill for those sectioned parts, and then I'm going to create 2 copies of fully black pumpkins for the background and the front of these pumpkins. I'm basically creating pockets for these pumpkins, and you'll see how those come together as I start building these pumpkins outside of silhouette. But I flipped a couple horizontally just so that the stems point in different directions. Then I'm going to right click and release compound path, and then select just the outlines here and move them off the page. And then I'm going to turn them all black. And when you have released the compound path and taken those cutouts out of the equation, they will create solid black pumpkins. Then I went ahead and copied them all and then put them back where they were going so I could reapply the compound path to those pumpkins and then paste those black pumpkins back where they were. So now I have these pieces of the filler here that I'm going to select and drag those off the page so that I have all of those little sectioned pieces, and then I turn those black as well. So now I have all of these little pieces, and then I have 2 different copies of the fully black pumpkin shape. Now that I have that, I have a 12 by 12 canvas, and I'm going to separate all of these pumpkins into 3 by 3 squares that I'm going to adhere to my actual silhouette mat. Then this one down here on the bottom will actually be a 12 by 3 strip, and you'll see that here in a second in real life. So there we go. I have all of these different patterns from the Cider Season collection selected, and then I just had some orange cardstock because those pumpkins down at the bottom are going to be the background, so they don't really need to be patterned because you won't really see them. So now I am pulling out different patterns for different pumpkins here and placing them on top, and then of course I will just glue them all together, which is a sort of tedious process, but sometimes you have to do the tedious things to make the magic. So I made sure that all of my patterns were on different patterns, obviously, and I also wanted to make sure that the color variation was different too. So I made sure that, like, if I had that floral background with the blue argyle on top like this one, I didn't repeat that color combination anywhere else, just so that there was some cute variety and there wasn't just like 2 totally blue pumpkins on the page. So what I'm going to be doing, like I said, is creating pockets out of these little pumpkins. Now, looking back, I might have made these bigger and just done 4 pockets, 4 little pulls off of this because they are incredibly small. I end up putting 1.5 inch, maybe 1 inch circles inside these, which for me is not going to be large enough for a photo, or at least a photo of like a person. So what I end up doing is making this a fall faves page, and I can put little tiny photos of my fall favorite things, so maybe like leaves or pumpkin spice lattes or whatever inside these pumpkins, something that I can get a nice close-up on and it won't look weird coming in and out of these pumpkins. So if I were to redo this, I probably would make these, I don't think they would go double the size, but maybe 1.5 times the size and do only 4. But you can see I cut off the tops of these pumpkins just like if you were carving a pumpkin, and then I went ahead and sent them through my, those are 1.5 inch. I went ahead and sent them through my sewing machine, nice messy stitching around the outside edges rather than using adhesive. Now I'm just taking these, I'm sorry, I'm moving super fast, but it's just because I'm just gluing the tops of these circles, which are placeholders for later what I'm going to have for photos. They're just placeholders, and I just glued them to the top of those pumpkins so that they were, they will come in and out, and I will show you that in just a second. And I'm just adhering them to the background. Now we're moving super fast because we're just gluing things down here, but you can see I'm pulling things in and out making sure that they are all nice and aligned in the center. That way I can add my holes for my page on either side later on down the line when I decide where they're gonna go. So I'm just pulling these in and out. You can see how this page works. Super fun. Now I'm going to decorate. Now I have all of the die cuts for the Cider Season collection pulled out, but I don't really, I don't tend to decorate my foundation pages too much, but I did know that since these photos were super small that the fall faves was going to be perfect, so I went ahead and leaned into it and just created a bunch of clusters for these pumpkins. They're super cute and fun, but if I need to down the line, I can change them. So I just wanted to add some florals and some mushrooms to the outside edges with a couple of word bits that I thought would match. I really wanted to use that Hello Pumpkin, but it just didn't feel like it fit right in the center of the page. If it had been slightly larger for this composition, it might have worked a little bit better, but since it didn't quite span both pumpkins in the center, I didn't really love the way that it looked. Now I added that pumpkin spice latte because obviously that's going to go in there as well. Then I thought that that little beanie was cute. I can do something about cooler weather, even though fall around here is definitely not hat season, but it works as a visual signifier of a cooler season. And then pumpkin pie, which pumpkin pie comes in November for us, but pumpkin pastries and things like that, those are from August on, so that'll be perfect for representing that. Okay, so I think I like how these are coming together. I wanted to make sure I got a cluster on everything that didn't quite look too cluttered, so I wanted to make sure that like somewhere on the left, somewhere on the right. Super fun. Oh, I love it. I love all these little leaves. That's one cool thing about the Cider Season collection. It has a ton of leaves and little individual flowers for you to play with. All right, so that's page one. You can see these pull out just like that. All right, page two is going to be a little bit more traditional. I have a 6x8 paper here with a traveler's notebook signature, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this down a bit smaller because I don't want it to take up so much room on the page. So I'm cutting it right to the edge of the words. And then I have to cut down this traveler's notebook signature, which is going to pull out of that like a pocket, but I have to cut it down even more so that it fits in that pocket when I have the adhesive. So I've made it nice and skinny. Probably gonna have to cut it a few more times just to make sure that it's not gonna have any overhang, and then it will have to be cut vertically as well. Okay, so we've got this trimmed down. I'm gonna go ahead and use red line tape to create my pocket, just putting it on the very edges here. I should have used skinnier red line tape because I do believe I had to trim down that traveler's notebook signature even more. And I'm going to take my 2-inch circle punch and just create a little notch so that you can see the traveler's notebook signature underneath it. I don't know about you, but peeling the red line tape is always the hardest part for me. There, now we have a nice pocket, but I can't leave that well enough alone. That would be a great foundation page to start with. But I had an idea that since this striped part where I'm gonna put the photo is so small, a waterfall would be perfect for that portion of the page. So I might as well go ahead and make it. So I'm gonna cut down this scrap cardstock that is just gonna be the placeholder for whatever photos that I end up using to, I believe they were 2.75 by 3.75. We'll find out here in a second. 2.5. There we go. 2.5 by 3.5, something like that. Whatever fit that particular section. So now I'm going to use another piece of cardstock and I'm creating the waterfall fold. So the first one is actually, it just needs to be the size of your first photo. And I made mine a little bit longer just to make sure that I knew what I was doing, but it just needs to be the size of your first photo. And then you score at 1/4 of an inch for every additional photo that you're adding. So I did 3 more because I have 4 photos total. And then you're going to glue down just at those top portions where you have the score lines. You're going to glue down your photos. So they're not attached to anything except for that 1/4 of an inch here so that they can move independently of each other. Then when you have the top 3 photos down, see, you can see them flipping. When you have the top 3 photos down, the 4th photo is going to adhere to this pull tab but you don't actually glue it to the pull tab until you have this belly band. So this belly band needs to be scored at the width of your pull tab so that it wraps around the pull tab. And then once you have that scored so that it wraps around like that, I'm going to trim the extra off. You go ahead and adhere that bottom photo over the top of it so that the bottom photo holds it where it needs to be. So you can see I'm going to fully glue this bottom piece of cardstock, which will eventually be a photo, over the belly band, making sure that I adhere it closed so that the flaps that overlap are underneath the photo. Now I have the belly band in the back. You tuck in this portion. I'm going to trim off the extra, which is going to go straight up to the top of the photo or the bottom of the photo. Now I have a pull tab, belly band, and photo flaps. You can see them flapping up. Some of these need to be straightened out, which I will do. And then you take the belly band, you put adhesive just on the back of the belly band, and you adhere it to your page. That way everything can move independently of the photos. So I'm gonna put this down. I've straightened everything out. And I made sure that I put it so that when I pull the belly band completely open, everything stays within the confines of the page. So there we go. That is page number 2 done. I'm not gonna do any embellishing so that I have a fully open page to do whatever I want with later. But I have a pocket here and a waterfall tab. I did go ahead and add stitching after the fact. So you can see that messy stitching around all the best months end in burr. Now we're on to page 3, which is actually going to be a 2-page spread because I wanted to use the these frames from the, I believe from the journalers. So I'm going to use a bunch of the journalers and tags for this, and I'm going to create basically frames and word bits and stuff on a clothesline. Now it does take me a minute to figure out where I want everything to be because I kind of wanted it to go like back and forth across the page, sort of like a sideways V, but it didn't really work out very well doing it that way. It didn't look quite right. So what I end up having to do is actually add more to this, which seems crazy, but is what I end up doing. So, because I'm going to move these up to the top. So then I'm just going to have basically two rows of hanging frames and tags for this page. So you can see me trying to work out how to make this work, but it's just not going to look quite how I want it to look if I try and do it this way. So we're going to move everything up to the top once I figure that out. And then I'm actually going to add another photo frame just by using the frames from the sticker kit. And in Silhouette, I just went ahead and dropped a different pattern into the frame rather than the patterns that it came with. And I've shown you how to do that on previous videos. But you just basically go into the pattern fill to adjust it. And so I created myself another frame because I felt like I needed a fourth, and there's only 3 on the sticker sheets. And now I'm going to create some little banners with these scraps of paper that I have from the patterned cards. I like how that big chunk of plaid added a lot to the page, so I wanted to add that there. And then I'm going to add some skinny ones too. And the goal is to have a bunch of different sizes and shapes in what are basically clusters. A bunch of different sizes and shapes so that there's a lot of really great variation, and it just looks like just fun paper banner. Now I gotta figure out where to put all of these word bits. I don't want them to be next to each other. I kind of want them to be on separate pages, so I keep moving them around so that they're not like at the same visual level. You can see how if I have that there, the 2 different ones would be at the same, the 2 different word bits would be at the same visual line. So I moved the So Very Thankful back down to the bottom cluster. Now I'm ready to start adding things. I have this beautiful blue string here that I'm going to use. It adds some more of that beautiful blue from the collection to the page. And then I'm going to actually add eyelets. I bought myself a crocodile and some eyelets, so I'm going to add eyelets to each one of these little, I don't know, paper bits that I add to the page. I don't end up adding them to the actual tags because the holes punched in the actual tags from the sticker sheet are bigger than what you need to do for the eyelets. So I just went ahead and left those the way that they were. And I want this string to sort of, like I want it to be behind the photo, but I also want it to sort of wrap around the photo, which you'll see how I do that in a second. But I'm just playing here and making things look the way I want them to just in the moment, right? I don't really have a super solid plan going into this. I'm just adding as I go. And then I think that the string itself adds a whole lot of movement to the page, and where this page could look pretty linear and straight lined, the string adds some fun curve that I think really breaks it up nicely. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and continue the banner basically across the page, the string of banners. This is when I've decided that I'm going to move it up to the top. Yep, that looks better. There we go. That's how it's going to end up. So I went ahead and strung all of those just like I put them down with the eyelets and everything. Then I'm going to work on the next page, starting with what I already have down because I have to run over to my computer and print out another one of those frames. So I'm going to start here. Now an option I could have done was just leave that part blank down there and maybe add a title later, but I decided that the word bits were a better title than a title I could add, and I can always add some letter stickers down the line in between the banners too. All right, so the frame that I created was that blue argyle, because I thought that the contrast was good. The other ones were orange and white and brown. And I'm going to use some more of the journaling bits here. I don't necessarily need 2 journaling spots. You can see that I have the Beauty Fall one, and then I also have the leaves over there. But they will be good foundations for adding other things on top of later. Like they add to the page without taking away from the white background. So they just kind of add little designs to the white background. So if I just want to leave them as places to decorate later, I can do that. Or I can add words to both sides if I want to. All right, last page, last side here. We're going to go ahead and string everything through. I messed up the eyelet, so I was pounding it into place. Oh, I really love how this page came out. It's super fun. And those photos in there, those photo spots in there are pretty large too for a October daily. So that's good too. I always sometimes have, it's either like full page photos or tiny photos it feels like. So I like being able to fit 4 photos onto this page in a fairly large format for this size album. All right, I've got the last one threaded. We're gonna put everything down and I'm gonna tie bows on the edges or the last edge and call this one good. Of course I messed it up. Gotta go from the back here. And then I also used some glue to glue down the bows so that they didn't move around too much. These are going to be outside the page protector, so I just want to make sure that everything kind of stays still. And I got to add in my holes in the middle as well. Look at that, so cute. Love that page. All right, we've got one more page, and what I decided to do for the last page, here in a second, is take those cutouts that I had from all of those pumpkins that I made, and I went ahead and adhered them to each other so that I have like these squares with the pumpkin cutouts, and they're gonna have patterned paper backgrounds as well, and they're gonna flip out, so they're gonna be super fun. They're gonna open up, these are 3x3 squares, so they're gonna open up to either 3x3 photos or journaling spots, or I have these patterned papers here as well that I can just decorate. So I'm going to go ahead and use a cardstock hinge to create the flip ups, and I'm just trimming out the extra here. But you know, I don't want to leave that the way that it is, so I'm gonna back the pumpkins. I had the initial idea to leave it see-through, but because the back of that looks pretty terrible, I'm gonna go ahead and back these pumpkins with pattern paper as well. But first I'm just going to put all these down. You can see I'm contemplating doing this, but they're not going to align quite right because the way that the silhouette cut was not perfect on every 3x3 square, so they're not like perfectly centered. So instead we're just going to add pattern paper in a second. Oops, I added too much adhesive. So I'm just going to create all of these flippy flappies first. Just repeating the process with this cardstock hinge, gluing it down, and then gluing the pattern paper over the top of it. I want some to open to the left and some to open to the right. So I'm just making sure that they do that. All right, now I've got them all glued down, and I centered them at the top left of the page and added in holes on the right. Sometimes I just decide what side it's going to go on. Sorry about the crazy hair. And now I am using liquid glue and adhering patterns to the back of these pumpkins. Now I can decorate on the outside as well. I can add letter stickers. I can do whatever I want. But these are great. Foundation pages for me are just like doing the hard work of coming up with the fun ideas beforehand and then going ahead and decorating and finishing the page during the crazy months where you're trying to scrapbook every day. All right, so I've got patterns on the back of all of these, and I decided that the best way to finish off this page was to create a place for me to add maybe a title later. I can also use it to add journaling later. It'll probably end up being a title since I do have a journaling card on the inside of one of those squares. So I'm just cutting this down to the width of the little squares, which is slightly over 6 inches because they do have a little separation. And then I'm going to notch it into a banner with my blah, 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 man, with my little board over here. So I just found the middle and I added a little notch at the top and bottom, which I'll use my scissors to meet here in a second. I mean, I don't always have to be super precise. I just thought since it was already out, I would use it to find the middle. Then notch it into a banner, and then I'm going to call it good. So if you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. I would love to have you. If you don't already, you can follow me over on Instagram. I'm at Traci M. Reed. I'd love to see you over there as well. There is a link to all the products I used in the description box below, and I will see you next time. Thank you.